It's a nice, cool day in Columbia, South Carolina, and I am at Riverbank Zoo and Garden speaking with Melody Scott Leach. And you, like me, graduated in horticulture from Clemson, but I sure didn't take any classes in zoo horticulture.
There aren't any classes in zoo horticulture. It's a lot of on-the-job training.
And how did you get fascinated with this and become so proficient in it?
Well, I kind of just happened into the job, but then it became, as you said, fascinating and challenging and so different than most types of public horticulture. You know, there were so many different aspects to it.
And the new trend now in this is to do what?
Well, it started really in the 80s. It's called immersive habitats. And you try and surround the visitor and all the guests with and mimic the habitats of the animals.
So you don't necessarily bring in the exact plants that would be from Africa or Australia or Europe or someplace.
Of course, that would be very hard in any situation anywhere where zoos are to try and bring in plants. Sometimes it works out and we can do it. But for the most part, we have to try and mimic plants from that habitat.
And you're doing two things. You're trying to give me, the visitor, a sense of what it would look like if I were going around the world and on safari.
Absolutely. And we're also trying to be set designers for the animals, to give them places where they feel comfortable, where they can hide if they need to. I mean, nobody likes to be on exhibit all the time. So we use plants to do that a lot of times.
And that means you've got a lot of, when you're putting plants in with the animals, there are a lot of things you have to think about.
Absolutely. How they're going to interact with the animals. You have some animals that eat plants, so that can be particularly challenging. But a lot of animals don't, like cats and stuff, but they may play with plants in a different way than other animals. So it just depends on how the animal's going to utilize the plant. And of course, toxicity is always important. You don't want to be hurting any animals. So.
And where we are sitting right now, which is so pleasant, there's a breeze. And we're probably going to have a little unexpected noise because we're right by
the sea lions,
yes.
Sea lion and seal exhibit. And actually, this exhibit's only about 3 years old. And even though I can't plant anything, of course, this is an aquatic exhibit, so I can't really plant much in there with them. All the habitats surrounding this exhibit, I did try and mimic the California coast. And of course, when you pull up pictures of that, you see windswept conifers, you see grasses blowing in the breeze, and you also see a lot of wildflowers and small silvery shrubs. So that's what I've done here.
One of the newer things that you've been working on is a rhinoceros exhibit, and it was different from different types of rhinoceros eat different things?
They do. Well, about 10 years ago, we did have black rhinos here at Riverbanks, and they are browsers, which means that they eat leafy shrubs, eat off of trees.
Okay.
Now we have white rhinos who have just come to Riverbanks and replaced our elephants on exhibit. They're grazers, so they eat grasses. So, even the same animal you would think who would be the same are completely different.
So if these animals that want to eat every sprig of grass that comes up, you can't really mimic the savanna in that respect. So how will you give the viewer a sense of what it would be like if we were seeing them?
In the public spaces of exhibits, I have to utilize that a lot to try and make the visitor feel part of the habitat and mimic that animal's habitat. And of course, they're from the plains of Africa, a lot of grasses, acacia trees. So I'm looking for plants that'll grow here that I can mimic, and I use that part to make the visitor feel immersed. Although I will continue to try and grow grass out on the rhino exhibit. It'll just be challenging, and it'll be continually seeding, and it may take me 10 years, but eventually I'll get something out there.
I'm sure that, like all of us, they sometimes get an itch, and do they need something to scratch and rub against?
They do. We do have an actual brush out on exhibit, but they in the wild, they would rub up against tree trunks probably to scratch themselves. And I did plant 4 large trees out on the exhibit, but I needed to protect those trees because they're going to provide shade for them. So we did some big boulders, just big rocks around there so that they can rub up against those, but hopefully it's going to protect the trees.
And while you were talking about the need for shade, you've got tigers, and they can't take their winter coat off their fur off. So what have you done to try to change their exhibit and give them more comfort, and yet still give us a sense of where we might see a tiger from very far away, we hope?
Very far away. Like you said, they wear their fur coat year round. And, with that size exhibit, it's hard to plant a large tree for shade in there because that could give them access to climb out of the exhibit. So I have to be very careful about what I plant. So the team here at Riverbanks came up with a very creative idea of using an old concrete culvert and running the cold water from the Saluda River through that to give them a cool, shady place to lay. And it was my job just to kind of make this culvert not look like a culvert anymore. So planting grasses on it, using rocks, using deadfall from trees just to kind of hide it, but to still provide for the animal what they need.
And do you try to give them a place to kind of get out of the view of the public? Is that something they need? And does that help them feel secure?
They do. I mean, most animals aren't really comfortable on a wide open plain. Maybe tigers not so much from predator standpoint, but no one likes to be vulnerable all the time. So even though the visitors may not enjoy it, I think it's important for the animals to have that security, to have a place to go to where they feel like they aren't on exhibit all the time.
One thing I always enjoy doing is visiting the gorillas because they remind us of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Perhaps with better qualities in some ways and in other ways not. And I think this is an area that you feel y'all have excelled in creating.
We have. I think from the exhibit design, which is there's a lot of height to it, which gorillas like. They like to be up high, and planting trees in there is difficult because, of course, gorillas climb the trees, and most trees aren't sturdy enough to handle the weight of a gorilla.
And this is which type of gorilla is this?
They're lowland gorillas.
Lowland. Okay, I'm sorry, excuse me.
And the height is good, and it's difficult because gorillas eat plants, but we've been very successful with the plantings in this exhibit, and it's very lush. And we actually have the problem of having to go in there and cut out some of the foliage.
Well, I think that's to your credit that y'all have made such good selection that could withstand that,
Well,
and yet still give us a sense of where they would be and let them enjoy themselves as well.
they do. They enjoy it very much.
And then, although some people don't like reptiles, I'm very fond of them, and they do provide so much control of things like rodents and things that are problematic. But y'all have a beautiful, beautiful display, and you said that you work very closely with the people who are the specialists there.
We do. Because we don't go into those exhibits very often, we work really closely with the reptile keepers, and they kind of are our conduit to get plants into the exhibit. One thing I love about reptiles is the fact that they don't interact with plants in a lot of the ways that mammals and birds do. So therefore, I'm able to grow a lot more in those exhibits. But we have a lot of interior exhibits with some tropical and even natives. But we also have a lot of tortoise exhibits outside.
And you told me that the Galapagos have some favorite things they enjoy, and some of the other tortoises to eat.
They do. They really love pansies. So in the fall and winter, when we're deadheading pansies out throughout the zoo and the garden, we will bring what we deadhead over and we'll kind of toss them to the tortoises and they munch on them. It's kind of a treat for them. They also, in the summer, they love hibiscus flowers. So I have actually planted some hibiscus plants in there so that when they drop off or when keepers want to, that they can pick them off and throw them down for them to eat.
Birds, oh my goodness, they can be as loud as these sea lions we're listening to. And I think whenever I think about Riverbanks, especially if it's a hot day, is those flamingos.
Yes, the flamingos are fun, and they're one of the most colorful animals in the animal world, and people love them. And that's one reason we have them very near the front entrance, because it's a draw. It attracts people over there. And flamingos are one of those animals that like a more open space because they use it for nesting.
Oh.
So we can't really encroach much on that. They do have a nesting island in their exhibit. And, part of horticulture is providing what the animal needs. So a lot of times we're bringing heavy clay in there for them to use for their nesting.
Okay.
And but we do plant the perimeter of the exhibit.
And tropicals, and that tropical look is always fun, don't you think?
Absolutely.
And now we can have the tropical look going through the end of November sometimes in South Carolina.
You're right. I think we go 3 months out of the year without something being tropical.
Now, the parrots, you said, have some peculiarities that some of the other birds don't, that make it more challenging about what wood you would use?
That's true. There are some toxic woods, and parrots do a lot of chewing.
Do they?
Yeah, they gnaw on wood a lot. So you have to be careful the wood you use in a parrot exhibit. And all birds are different. They use plants in different ways, just like our native birds here. Some use them for nesting or some use them for food. But with parrots, they're using them to perch in and just to chew. So I do have to be careful. I have a list of parrot-safe wood in my office.
And you said that y'all do, there's a small group of y'all and y'all do share information all the time.
We actually have an international group, but most are from the U.S., and we have message boards, and we can say, hey, what do you have planted in this exhibit, or what's worked for you in this? So it's great.
You have an exhibit of mixed birds from Australia, and of course that continent is completely unlike anything else. So what have you tried to do there to give us a sense of what it would be like?
Well, you're right. Australia, of course, even the continent of Australia is very different. But what I've tried to do is find plants that mimic that. I was very fortunate enough to find a eucalyptus that would grow here that mimics a lot of the eucalyptus there. That's cold hardy for us. And I do try and maintain the plant palette among all the Australian animals here. So it's similar. And, if you're paying close enough attention, you feel like you're in Australia in all those areas.
The kangaroos, of course, are from there. And so tell me a little bit about what you've done there and a funny story that goes along with it.
There is a funny story. I thought that Vitex mimicked a lot of the scrubby trees that I saw in pictures from Australia, and I planted that in the exhibit. Well, of course, the Vitex common name is the chase tree, and it turns out that the kangaroos were actually nibbling on this, and it was a bit of a problem. The vet came to me, and it seemed it was kind of messing with their reproductive system. So we now know why it's called the chase tree, and I ended up having to remove it all from the exhibit.
And then the very special little animals you have, a few of them are the koalas.
Yes.
And now tell me what it is that they only eat.
They only eat eucalyptus, and only certain eucalyptus.
Oh.
There are probably more than 500 different, species of eucalyptus all over the world. But the ones that they do like to eat do not grow here. It gets too cold for it here. So we have to ship in eucalyptus, and we ship from 2 suppliers, one in South Florida and one in Arizona. And that is in case something happens to either supply, we always have a backup to go to. But we also have to maintain a emergency supply here. And of course, we had to build a specialty greenhouse for that. We have a greenhouse over in our growing center complex that just has a dirt floor, and the trees are planted directly in the ground. And we just keep them trimmed back to maintain in that greenhouse and occasionally feed out from it.
So that if we had a hurricane or something and the delivery trucks and planes couldn't get here for a couple of days, we know that these animals have everything that they need.
Absolutely. We could feed them for probably, I would say, at least 2 weeks.
Gosh.
It's a lot to take care of and to maintain.
Y'all are open all the time, I think, and have lots of visitors, and the visitors are animals.
Absolutely, and they interact with all of our animals here. One area in particular is our farm area. We encourage people to interact with the goats. They go out with them, or they can actually feed the goats. We have goat feeders with food in them down there. What we found, though, was that some of the visitors were actually, say you didn't have a quarter in your pocket, they were picking some plant material down near the goats and feeding it to them. Well, unfortunately, plants interact with certain animals differently than they may with us, and it was causing a lot of tummy troubles with the goats. It was azaleas that I had planted down there, and it turns out they're toxic for them. So even though they were pretty far away from the goats, I had to go in and remove most of those from the area to keep the human animals from bothering the goat animals.
There are many homeowners who rue the day that they planted bamboo, but you are very happy with the amount of bamboo you have here.
We do love bamboo.
What all is it used for?
Well, we use it from everything from staking tomato plants down at the farm to building garden trellises in other areas. But the main thing that it's important for is a food source for our animals. You know, all of our browsers like to have those leafy plants to eat. And in the winter, it can sometimes be difficult because most of our trees and shrubs are deciduous here. So it is an evergreen plant, and it's easy to cut, easy to get to, easy to access because we do have so much of it. And the keepers will come and cut it and take it out on exhibit for the animals to enjoy. I will say by the end of winter, they're probably sick of bamboo though. So they're really happy when other things start to leaf out and we can give them some different variety.
It's like when we've been eating collard greens 3 months in a row and are ready for something else.
Exactly.
Well, this has just been the most fascinating topic. And I envy you and admire you for the wide breadth of knowledge you've collected and shared with your friends. And remind us again of how easy it is to visit Riverbanks.
Oh, we're here all the time. We are open 9 to 5 every day except Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day. So you can come out and see the animals year round.
Well, I have had a wonderful time today, and thank you for sharing this information with us.
We have plenty more stories to tell, so come back.